Hey guys, what's going on? This is Andrew here today, and we're going to be talking about some of the knockoff controllers that I have, aka some of the weird controllers that I have. So some of these controllers I actually prefer to the controllers that are for the systems. Some of these controllers actually are for the main systems. So these controllers, we're just going to take a look at them, and I'm going to show you what they are and what I think about them. So the first one we're going to be looking at is the Madcatz GameCube controller. So basically, when I was younger, I had pretty small hands and didn't really notice how small this controller really was. Well, jumping back on this controller again, I'm realizing how uncomfortable this could possibly be in an adult person's hands. Obviously, this controller was focused mainly on a younger kid rather than somebody who was an adult with bigger hands. I don't really have big hands as is, as I'm 20 years old now, going to be 20, but they're big enough to where this controller feels crazy small on me, so I can't imagine how someone like Shaq would be if he were to play on this controller. Overall, it is a pretty good quality controller. The buttons are pretty clicky, and overall it does feel pretty nice. In fact, there's an R1 and a Z button on here, which you just didn't see on normal game controllers for the GameCube back then, which is kind of weird. There's also got a macro button on there, and basically every other thing of a functional GameCube controller. So this is basically just a GameCube controller, just basically a miniature version of it made by Madcatz, which back then Madcatz made a lot of knockoff controllers that were pretty good. Okay, the next controller that I'm going to talk about is actually a controller for my Retron 2. So basically my NES had reading cartridge problems, and my Super Nintendo that I got in the mail at some point just couldn't read my cartridges at all. I ended up just keeping it for parts because eventually I'm going to get another Super Nintendo and I might use some of those parts in there just in case there's anything broken in the other one. So basically this is the Retron 2 controller for NES games. So what we have on here is basically, I can't really get the lighting good on here. Yeah, we got basically on here, we got the B button, we got the turbo B button. By just holding that down, it just basically rapid fires that button. You got the A button and then the rapid fire A for that button. And then you have the slow-mo button, which basically just pauses the game 3 million times as you're playing, a select and start button, and just a simple directional pad. So I actually prefer this controller over the NES controller. I feel it just feels a tiny bit better in my opinion. I also like the addition of these extra controls just in case you want to take advantage of them. Spamming that B button in certain games isn't always fun, and just having that turbo button really makes things easier every once in a while. Okay, so the next controller is a controller that I just got for my newest system that I just bought, the Ouya controller. So this is a controller that is for the Ouya. I picked up this controller secondhand. I bought the Ouya and the controller separately. So this controller was actually brand new in the box. I unboxed it, and it is one of the weirdest controllers I have ever felt. Not only is this the weirdest button name combo of anything I've ever seen, but this layout is just trying so hard to be different, and it's really just not good at all. I mean, the triggers feel like absolute garbage. The bumpers feel mediocre at best, maybe slightly worse than the, or maybe even slightly better than the Xbox One controller bumper, so that's really the only good thing it has. But other than that, it just really does not feel good. The D-pad is mediocre at best. The joysticks really just, they don't feel like they'll stay on you very easily. They are very slippery, and the buttons are OAYU, just a weird button layout. I honestly feel like, you know, they could have just made it just like the Xbox buttons, because at this point that's really all it is. I mean, it's color coded the exact same way, just with different colors. This is basically a knockoff Xbox controller in a way. I haven't tested this on any other system besides the Ouya, but it would be interesting to try to use this for a game. So yeah, definitely a weird controller that I had to say is kind of strange. Okay, so another controller that I got is my Rock Candy PS3 wired controller. So getting this controller, I was actually at Toys R Us before it shut down, and I was looking for a gamepad for my PC, considering that I was, at the time, actually I was just playing on a laptop. I didn't have my gaming PC yet, but I wanted a controller to play some of the new Steam games I had just gotten on my laptop, some of the lower end, easier type games. So basically, I got a wired PS3 controller just to find out that this really was just not compatible with any games, and even the software that would work with PS3 controllers just didn't seem to work with this one. I don't know exactly what this was. This did work on my PS3, and I have not tested this on my PS2 to see if it worked on there, but I would very much like to see if this would work on there. Now, this has got the same functionality as a PS3 controller, nothing added onto it. What's weird about it, though, is it is kind of like in the layout of an Xbox 360 controller more than it is a PS3 controller, because as you see, you've got the camera stick, the camera joystick, right where the Xbox 360 one would be, and the regular left joystick at the top, like you would see on the 360. So, strange way that they would put that out there. This is like a mix between a PS3 and a 360 controller. I think it does feel pretty nice. I can't say I prefer it to the actual PS3 controller, but in terms of a knockoff controller, this wouldn't be a bad one to have if you were looking for a wired variant. It really does feel pretty good. After a few years, though, my right bumper did start to get stuck a little bit, but I opened it up and fixed it myself, so not a problem now. Okay, we're down to my last two controllers. So the next one we're going to be looking at is the Afterglow Xbox One controller. I have heard that this controller actually does go for a decent amount of money nowadays. I basically got this as a controller to be mainly my PC controller, because I kept having to sync my Xbox One controller on the Xbox One and keep alternating it between PC. And even when I didn't sync it and I was using the cable, it was still making me resync a million times. So I decided to finally get a wired controller that would be primarily for PC. Although I have not used this controller in years, because I mainly play on keyboard nowadays when it comes to playing on PC. But what's cool about this controller, I can't find a micro USB cable to test it right now, but this actually lights up and does multiple different colors. It's a very cool looking controller, and this one I prefer over the actual Xbox One controller. Not the Series X controller, I really like that one, but I prefer this one over the original Xbox One controller. It just feels really responsive. It feels really nice in the hands. I love the texture of the controller. The material is used. Everything on it just feels extremely quality. The bumpers are so much better than the Xbox One bumpers. The triggers are really clicky. They're just, overall, this is a really nice controller, and I think I'm going to be using this basically forever if I'm going to be playing on PC with the controller ever again. So, very nice controller. Definitely a knockoff one that is pretty interesting, and especially since it lights up. That's fucking cool, man. Alright, my last controller on the list, and the weirdest controller that I have ever gotten, has to be my Gamester Xbox controller, my original Xbox controller. So, what you're seeing here is basically a mappable controller. So, you're probably wondering, where are the face buttons? The A, B, X, Y. Well, they're right here. Here's the first button. Here's the second button. Here's the third one. And here's the fourth one. And they all have name labels on them. So it would be A, B, X, Y. And what's cool about this controller is, like I just said, you can map the controllers to whatever you want. So if you were to turn this controller on while it was plugged into an original Xbox, you would get a little stat screen, and you can map 3 different presets for the game that you want to play. I actually use this now as my main controller. I'm not saying I like this better than the original Xbox controller, because let's be honest, this is not exactly a standard kind of controller. This is more of like a competitive kind of controller for customization purposes, but I think it is a very cool controller. You know, I wouldn't basically be like, oh, I'm not going to use this controller. If someone were to hand this to me, I'd definitely be good with it. One thing for sure, I probably wouldn't use this for competitions just because I'm not used to it, but if I were to get used to it, I can see myself using it for some kind of competition, because the fact that you can hit the back buttons with your other fingers instead of having to worry about the buttons while moving your hands off of the joysticks and all that stuff, I feel like this is a great controller for that kind of use. It really is a good feeling controller. Surprisingly that it looks like this and it's like slanted weird, but this really is a comfortable controller. I like it a lot. Anyway, guys, that's all of my weird controllers I can think of at the top of my head. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and just seeing my weird controllers, because I do have quite a lot and I do have a fascination with them. I also have a another controller which basically has like an AC built in it, but it came in with a broken wire, so I have to resolder that at some point. I'll update that you guys in the description if that controller ever starts working. So yeah, guys, I will see you all in the next video, and keep your eyes out for an Ouya review, because I just got an Ouya and I'm going to be doing some tests on it.